types of stone used in the pyramid. It's really fascinating. You've got the limestone, which comes from the Giza Plateau itself, so that's relatively local.
Okay, so that's not too bad.
Yeah, but then you have the granite, which was used for the inner chambers and the king's chamber, and that was quarried all the way from Aswan, which is over 800 kilometers away.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling thinking about how they even began to move those massive granite blocks that far. We were talking some of them weighing up to 70 tons.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where the Nile River comes in. It was
Yeah.
a crucial waterway for the ancient Egyptians, and it played a major role in transporting these massive stones.
It makes sense. The logical way to move that much weight over that kind of distance would almost have to be by boat.
Exactly. And the sources we looked at suggest that they built these huge barges specifically designed to carry these massive blocks, and they would float them down the Nile all the way to Giza.
I guess when you've got a river like that, you use it, right?
Absolutely. It was their highway system, so to speak.
Yeah. So, okay, they managed to get these huge blocks of stone to the pyramid site. But then there's the real head scratcher. How do they actually lift these things, hundreds of feet up to build the pyramid?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? And there are a lot of different theories out there about how they did it. One of the most popular is the ramp theory.
Okay, yeah, the ramps, I remember reading about those.
Yeah, so basically the idea is that they built these massive ramps leading up to the pyramid, and they would use these ramps to haul the stones up to the different levels.
And that makes sense. It's kind of like the most intuitive solution you can think of.
Yeah.
But when you consider just how massive the pyramid is and how high it is, those ramps would have to be pretty insane.
Oh, yeah, they would have been enormous. And that's one of the main drawbacks of this theory. The amount of material and labor that would have gone into building these ramps would have been absolutely mind-boggling.
So is there a better alternative to the straight ramps, or what?
Yeah.
Well, there are some variations on the ramp theory that have been proposed. Some people think that they might have used zigzag ramps that would have been built along the sides of the pyramid as it grew.
Oh, okay, so it kind of spirals up with the pyramid.
Exactly. That way, the ramps wouldn't have had to be as long and steep.
That's actually pretty clever.
Yeah. And there's another even more intriguing theory about an internal ramp. A ramp that was actually built inside the pyramid itself.
A hidden ramp. That's wild.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating idea, and there's some evidence that might actually support this theory. There are these shafts and passages inside the pyramid that some researchers believe could have been part of this internal ramp system.
Wow. It's like something out of Indiana Jones.
Right, exactly.
So, okay, let's say they're using these ramps to get the stones up to the right level, but even then, just dragging those huge blocks across the sand to the base of the ramps. I mean, the friction must have been immense. How did they deal with that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And the ancient Egyptians were actually pretty clever about this. One theory is that they used water to lubricate the sand.
Water, really?
Yeah, they would basically pour water in front of the sleds that they were using to haul the stones, and this would have significantly reduced the friction, making it much easier to move them.
Wow, that's so simple, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah, and there's actually some experimental evidence to support this theory. Researchers have done tests where they've shown that wetting the sand can reduce the friction by like 50% or more.
That's incredible. So it's not just brute force. They're using their understanding of physics to their advantage.
Exactly. They were very ingenious people.
So, all right, we've talked about the materials and the transportation and how they might have lifted these stones. But one thing we haven't really touched on is the workforce. Who were the people who actually built these pyramids?
Yeah, and that's something that's often misunderstood. There's this common misconception that the pyramids were built by slaves.
Right. I think a lot of people have that image in their heads.
Yeah, but the evidence actually suggests that that's not the case. Archaeologists have found workers' villages near the pyramids, and the people who lived in these villages were skilled laborers. They were paid for their work, they had good nutrition, and they were treated relatively well.
So this wasn't like a forced labor situation. It was more like a massive national project.
Exactly. It was a source of pride for the ancient Egyptians to work on these grand monuments.
And I imagine it took a lot of people to build something on this scale.
Oh, yeah. Estimates vary, but it's thought that somewhere between 20,000 and 30,000 people worked on the Great Pyramid, and it probably took them about 20 to 30 years to complete.
Wow, that's just incredible. The level of organization and coordination that must have taken.
Absolutely. It was a truly massive undertaking.
And then you have the finishing touches, once they'd finished building